Hey, everybody. This episode of The Business of Hype deals with topics like depression, anxiety, and mental health. If that's too much for you to handle right now, you might want to skip out on this one. And if you think you need help or you just need someone to talk to about it, we're going to have links all the way at the end of the episode where we point you in the right direction. So yeah, listener discretion advised. Okay, let's carry on. From HYPEBEAST Radio, I'm Jeff Staple, and this is The Business of Hype, a show about creative entrepreneurs, brand builders, innovators, and the realities behind the dreams they've built. Within every community, there exists a shared responsibility. It's often unspoken, assumed, and undefined, but it's there. And when that responsibility lapses, it is immediately apparent. Now, in our society, within fashion, streetwear, sneaker culture, plus with the magnifying glass of social media applied, it is glaringly obvious that many of us are suffering. And too often, that suffering happens alone and in silence. It's heavy, but it's real. So as part of our responsibility to this community, the fortuitous nature of humanity has recently shined a light on the missive and message of Liz Beecroft, a sympathetic being that has pledged allegiance to working with the youth, primarily those from foster families, to unlock a path to mental wellness. And while this might sound like a succinct definition of her job, I can tell you now that the complexities of the task of social work are literally immeasurable. Truly, social work is work that simply cannot be measured. The wellness of our mental state can inspire our society, but it can just as easily destroy it, and that's no exaggeration. So how does all this relate to HYPEBEAST and the business of hype? Well, Liz recently combined all of her passionate interests and somehow manifested them to design one of the most coveted sneakers of the year. So how exactly does a social worker, a sneaker company, and sneakerheads all over the world find themselves under the same umbrella, helping one important cause? We're about to find out, and a whole lot more with this week's guest, Miss Liz Beecroft. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So for those of you who don't know, my name is Liz Beecroft. I am a full-time licensed social worker, currently working for a foster care agency in Brooklyn. And I also am a big mental health advocate, and I try to use my social media platforms to advocate for mental health. And recently I designed a sneaker with Nike and Cultivator, which was a mental health awareness shoe called In My Feels. It was an Air Max 270 React. And yeah, that's why I'm here to talk a little bit about all of that.
Okay, cool. This is a unique subject that we're going to talk about because oftentimes on our show, we talk a lot with either aspiring or successful entrepreneurs. And it's always about like the business and the finance and the success and, failures and trials and tribulations. But then how that affects them mentally is almost something that's never really comfortably discussed. And that's your whole thing. Your whole thing is talking about how people feel and how it affects them mentally.
Yep.
So first, in order to unpack everything that you just said you do, let's start from the beginning, like about your job. Say your job title again, because it was a lot.
Licensed master social worker currently. I'm studying to get my licensed clinical social worker license.
Okay. So I feel like social worker is one of those jobs that like you don't exactly know what that means. You get an idea of what a social worker is, but explain from a social worker standpoint, what exactly does a social worker do?
So a social worker, this is actually hard to describe from my standpoint as well.
It's not just everyone else.
No, it's a very broad term. So essentially you're working with social service organizations and you're helping people. You're giving back in some way, shape, or form. So the reason I chose social work was because it is a big umbrella of different concentrations underneath. You can work with substance use, you can work with eating disorders, women's rights, you can just do advocacy work, you can do policy work, you can do specific mental health clinical work.
Got it.
There's such a range.
So social work is a huge umbrella that encompasses many smaller buckets and silos of specialty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then which specialty are you in?
I am in the mental health field.
Okay.
Yes.
And even I'm sure that's like a universe of itself, right? There's probably silos within mental health.
Yes.
Can you break that down a little bit?
In mental health, like I'm specifically in a foster care organization right now doing a model of therapy with kids in foster care. But, I could be working in a hospital doing mental health therapy with people who might have chronic illnesses or who might also be in, a psychiatric unit with some severe mental health issues. Or I could be doing mental health therapy with people who are getting treated for substance abuse. So it really depends. I'm just looking at, it's like a systems model essentially of, what system did I want to work with? And right now I'm in foster care. It's my system.
Okay.
But, I have future goals to eventually maybe make moves. But I think as far as mental health goes, I'm very passionate about understanding like how our thoughts work, how our feelings and thoughts and actions are all connected.
Yeah.
And so, it really, you kind of just end up where your
feelings
go. Where your feelings go. And especially like when I was in grad school studying for my master's in social work degree, I had 2 internships. One was in a college counseling center. So I was doing mental health therapy for kids in a college.
Okay.
And then my second one, I was doing crisis therapy. So for people who might not always be stable mentally and kind of just going to their home and doing a mental health assessment to make sure that they were okay, or if they had to go to the hospital, or what services they needed. So it's a huge range. It really.
And your focus now is foster care.
Yeah.
Which is, am I to assume that's mostly young kids?
Well, in New York State, you can enter foster care system from birth, and you age out at 21.
Okay.
So it really depends. Yeah.
Can you break that down a little bit? Like, how do kids end up in foster care? How are kids born into foster care? Explain some of that.
So in New York, you can end up in foster care, for various reasons. It's usually something on the parents' end where it might be neglect, educational neglect, just food, physical malnourishment, neglect. It could be abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. It could be substance use, having a parent who is actively using drugs in front of the child. They could be brought into care. It could be forms of corporal punishment. It could be, there's so many different reasons. And usually it's through reports from school or neighbors or other family members that see this happening to the child. They make the report. It goes in, it gets investigated by ACS, which is the basically overall umbrella agency of New York City. And then once the kid enters ACS, they then send them to the agencies. There's multiple different foster care agencies in New York.
And as a social worker, you are working one-on-one with the kid?
Yeah.
Okay. You said you're a master social worker? What is that? What is the difference between master and regular? So like black belt and white belt?
Yeah, pretty much. So basically to do clinical work, face-to-face therapy, I needed my master's degree.
Oh, so you have a master's degree?
Yeah,
so master's social worker means master degree.
Yeah, my MSW, master's in social work. Yep.
That's pimp.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope. Yeah. Okay. But are you still working one-on-one with kids, or does that mean you're managing social workers now?
Yeah, I'm actually doing all of it. I have interns. So I studied at NYU for my master's degree.
Okay.
I graduated in 2014, and now I am actually a supervisor for some students at NYU who are currently getting their master's degree. So every school year will have interns that come and work with us for a year, and I supervise them and have to know their caseloads. I have to know everything about their clients as well and help them clinically be a good therapist. I also have my own caseload of about 15 kids that I see individually for therapy, and I also do some group therapy work. So it's a mixture. I have my hand in kind of like everything.
Out of curiosity, is 15 sort of the max one human can accommodate in their head?
No, it's about half. When I first started,
it's about 7?
It's 30, 35
is like the max one social worker.
It really depends on the agency and your job and what your expectations are.
Right.
I first started at this agency and I was a full-time therapist. Now my title has changed since then. I've been there for about 3.5 years, but when I was a full-time therapist, my caseload was like 35, 36 clients, and you're supposed to see all of them once a week for about an hour. So if you do the math, it's
That's all you can do.
pretty hard. Yeah.
Right.
And plus your paperwork and
Yeah.
meetings and everything else that comes with it. So.
Hustle transcends. Hustle isn't a characteristic exclusive to everyone out here trying to launch the next great startup or the next untouchable streetwear brand. It is universal. And if it's not obvious that Liz has that hustle gene, just wait for the rest of the episode. Now, we've all been there. Imagine a heavy emotional interaction with a friend and consider that emotional drain we all feel whenever we bear the burden of being a shoulder to cry on for someone we care about. Now, try multiplying that in your head by 2 friends. But now, try multiplying that by 35 friends. It seems unfathomable that one mind and one soul could carry all of that weight. But this feeling drives Liz. She's been devoting her whole entire life to it. And it says a lot more than I could ever unpack in this one interlude. But I want to dive in further now and see how she can keep her emotional equation in check. It's incredible. What are you finding that is unique ways of doing therapy? Because I know you have some interesting methods that you do.
I do. It's actually funny. So I am very lucky at my job. I don't have to go in a suit and tie. Or not a tie, but I don't have to go in like business attire and look professional. I can wear pretty much whatever I want. So
you can wear this?
As long as I have pants on, yeah, I can get away with it.
No, she has pants on in the studio. I'm just saying she's wearing a long sleeve ACG t-shirt. She's wearing gold chains, her Nikes. Like, you definitely look like you just came off like a B-girl competition or something.
Well, as long as I had like...
Wait, are you wearing pants?
I have shorts.
You're wearing pants. Okay.
If I had full length pants on, then I could totally wear this.
But everyone else is usually quite professional?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, more business casual, but my business casual is like a nice pair of like trousers and a cool shirt.
My business casual is pants.
Pants, yes. I wear pants.
Leg coverings.
When I actually wear pants, it's business casual.
Always sneakers, though?
Yeah, always sneakers. I don't think I own anything that's not sneakers. I maybe own 2 pair of heels, and that's if I have to go to a wedding.
Right.
They're collecting dust in my closet right now.
Okay.
But
so you don't look and act and behave like other therapists? Okay.
Not the stereotypical therapist.
Okay, so tell us some of the unique techniques you have.
So kids will come in my office, and I'm also a huge Disney fan, so I'm eyeing your watch. I might steal it. But
my Mickey Mouse watch.
Yes. So I have my room pretty much decked out in Disney stuff for the kids. I also have a basketball hoop on the back of my door, and I wear sneakers. And I'll come in, the kids will kind of go nuts in my office. Oh my gosh, Miss Liz, your office, it looks so much fun. It's like the happiest place ever, except for Disney World. So they love that. But I prefer to work mostly with teenagers because I feel like with adolescents, they understand just what you're talking to them about a little bit more in depth than maybe 3 or 5 year olds. It's more like play therapy with them.
It's like distracting them with play.
Yeah, you're basically teaching them through Barbie dolls. Like, okay, this is how we appropriately talk to each other, or this is, you don't hit when you're mad, or you don't do this. So like teaching them skills that maybe they didn't learn when they were with their parents. With teenagers.
And just so I'm clear, you can, if you prefer to talk to teenagers, you can request that and just get teenagers. And I'm sure there's someone that prefers to play with kids, like younger kids. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right.
So most of my caseload is teenagers. And the cool thing about that, like the first phase of therapy is what we call engagement work, where you're really just trying to get to know them on a pretty personal level and help them feel comfortable and feel like they can open up to you about some of this stuff. Because in foster care, these teens are all traumatized. They've been through several traumas at least. That it's hard to open up. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to trust people to, really just be like, all right, I'm just going to meet some random person today and tell them all of my problems. And
even if you've never had trauma, that's like an awkward, weird thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing for me is my sneakers. Like a lot of the teenagers they love sneakers. So once they see me wearing sneakers, they're kind of like, okay, she's not that bad. She might get it. And then we'll just talk. And I'll spend like the first couple of sessions talking to them about music or sneakers or basketball or anything that they're interested in. And it's funny because like I actually do keep up with pop culture and what the youth is into these days. And, you know, it helps. It really helps because they're like, wow, she gets it. She gets like the social media world and how people like can bully you on social media. She gets that. So they feel comfortable. They open up to me, and like I'll have sessions. Technically, you're supposed to be for 45 minutes to an hour. They're there for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and like just talking. And if they're getting it out, fine. Like that's good. It's helping. So
you mentioned basketball. How does that? You know, you're a fan of basketball, but it also plays into your therapy, right?
It does. Yeah. So we have just different. Like we'll just shoot a ball, and I find too like sometimes,
in your office.
Yeah. I have a hoop on the back of my door. I shut my door, and we have like a little. It's like a mini one.
Yeah.
And we'll shoot. And I find like too while you're busy doing something and you're talking, it's more natural.
It's less focused on my words, but it's just conversation then.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that helps a lot too. And even like you can set up the basketball hoop and say, all right, we're going to play feelings basketball. And you have a spot here on the floor, a spot there on the floor, a spot here. And wherever you stand, you have to tell me about a time you felt these feelings. And that kind of encourages to talk a little bit more about your feelings. And we can, you can tweak it and kind of play it however you want. But that's how I incorporate it.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, I could imagine just even walking into a foreign room like that is so hard and challenging. And then a foreign person, like, it's tough. But it's weird how sneakers have like this sort of common through line, like where like people can really relate. Doesn't matter where you come from, how much money you have, what color skin you are, like people can sort of like bro down on sneakers immediately, right?
Yeah. Even if like you don't necessarily like some of my clients don't really know like the colorways or the models but they like them. They're interested in them.
Right. And they're not sneaker heads. They're just like, those are really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so weird. To me, it's like, that's like the power of a good sneaker designer is like, they could just make something that is like eye catching, you know?
Yeah. It was actually funny after, my shoe came out, one of my clients came in the next day and was, Miss Liz, I saw you on HYPEBEAST yesterday. And I was like, oh. Okay, cool. He's like, you're like a sneakerhead. And I was like, okay, thank you.
That's so awesome.
But yeah, he was funny. So
what is the age, like the sweet spot age that you deal with?
15, 16, 17. I have a couple that are like 18, 19 in college right now. So
they're high school kids.
Yeah.
You know, I do like a lot of talks and like lectures and symposiums all over the world, like to executives and agencies and stuff. When I get asked to speak at a middle school or high school, it is the most frightening thing. They are like no holds bar. And these are like kids that aren't in, going through therapy or in trauma, just normal public school, high school kids. They're like the most ruthless, like just, and also just like distracted. Like I could just tell like there's so much on their mind. So I could just imagine like the ones that you're dealing with are like that times 100.
Yeah. And I have some too, like, they'll give you the blank stare and you don't know what they're thinking.
Exactly.
You just don't know.
Oh
like,
my God, that's the worst.
Do they think I'm helpful? Do they think I'm the corniest person ever? Like, I can't read them. And then eventually they'll open up a little bit, but it's like cracking the shell off.
Yeah. It's like trying to be a comedian and like tell a joke so that like they change their face a little bit. Like, do you find anything I'm saying interesting or funny?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that is so tough.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take for you to like be able to crack that egg?
Maybe 3 sessions.
3 sessions?
Yeah, 3 sessions, I would say.
Okay. Okay, so let's shift a little bit. We talked about basketball and how you incorporate that, which leads to sneakers. Have you always been a sneakerhead?
I wouldn't say I've always been a sneakerhead. I don't, since I was little, because of my love of basketball and playing basketball, I've always been into sneakers.
Okay.
Growing up, like what got me into sneakers was basketball. My favorite players were like Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson. I'm from Pennsylvania. So AI was like the guy. I had a huge crush on Jason Kidd, Michael Jordan, this Kenyon Martin, who else? Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah.
All of those guys. And like, I think my first pair of like I can remember just from playing basketball growing up was probably a couple pair of AIs. I had the 4s, the 5s, the 6s.
You're allowed to say Reebok on the show.
Okay, Reebok. I also had the DMX i3s, which were my favorite, and I actually pissed my mom, like got rid of them. And I started into Jordans probably like 4th, 5th grade but I always wore them. I was never like a collector per se, because I guess like where I grew up in Pennsylvania too, we didn't have like sneaker stores. It was middle of nowhere.
Oh, it wasn't Philly.
No, I'm like an hour and a half north of Philly. So very much middle of nowhere area. We had a store in the mall called Schuylkill Valley Sports. That's where everyone went to get their shoes.
Right.
Or East Bay. We'd call
East
in
Bay,
the magazines.
Yep.
So I remember when the 17s came out with the briefcase, I had to have those. My mom ordered them for me. And then when I outgrew them, she gave them to my 5th grade teacher, and I never saw them again. So that's kind of my, like some of my sneaker stories. I had the 18s, the T-Mac 3s, the blue, the red, the solid blue and red ones.
How did, like, so you wore sneakers, but then there's like hypebeast culture, right? When did that enter your life?
I think
just
more,
for this, or even
no, I would say more so like in college was I got out of my hometown. I played basketball in college, and I think for me that's kind of more so when I started getting into just like the hype of sneakers. And I had a really good friend from home. His name's Vinny, and he was always into like the SBs and Dunks growing up. And he was kind of my guy at the time, like teaching me everything, taking me places.
Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to undergrad at a school called Susquehanna University. It's in Central PA.
Okay.
Liberal arts college, very small.
All right. And then you did NYU master's.
Yeah, and then my master's at NYU.
That must have been culturally mind-blowing, though.
Yeah, it was. Well, that's part of why I wanted to come to NYU. I just really wanted to get that different experience, and I didn't know how I was going to handle it, because when I was really young, I used to get really homesick. I couldn't stay really far away from home, so that's part of why I went to this school in Central PA, because it was only like 45 minutes away from my house. If I had to drive home, it was a quick drive. But I survived, and I'm here.
Obviously, yeah. Okay, so you sort of get ingratiated into hypebeast culture, like going into college. How about when you come to New York, when you move to like?
Oh, that totally like
Pandora's box just swung wide open.
I was like, and I'm just like, okay. So it was cool though, because I was able to learn a lot more than what I was able to learn when I was home. Because like growing up, I didn't have social media. I didn't have the access to what I have now. So it was more of like the forums and stuff, which I didn't really keep up with that much. I was a typical high school kid. I mean, I played basketball, soccer, and softball, and just did my thing. Went to school, came home. So it was
have to take the F train and get.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I had to ride the bus to school and
the yellow bus.
The yellow bus. Yeah.
So how long have you been in New York now?
I've been here since 2014.
Okay,
so 5 years.
5 years, and you've been doing your work. How does the conversation with Nike occur?
So as far as the Cultivator collab, the shoes.
Like
so
you're well. Let's see. Let's talk about I want to do it chronologically. I want to talk about how a social worker somehow gets a call from or an agency or whatever to have the possibility to do a shoe.
Okay. So basically, what had happened was I was working. Well, I was in grad school for 2 years, from 2014 to 2016, and then my first job out of grad school was grueling. Like I was doing in-home family therapy. I was working long hours. And my boyfriend was just kind of like, you need an outlet. Like you need something else to do that's not just your job. So he's like, what else do you like? I'm like, well, I like sneakers. I like styling. But like, I'm a social worker. It doesn't really all fit together. He's like, just do it. So I started like posting on Instagram, like photos of my shoe. And I really had fun with it because my boyfriend's a photographer. So he was able to teach me the editing and, just like different photography skills, I guess you could call it. Angles. Yeah, I had to work the angles. So learned a lot of that through him, and I enjoyed it. And then I started getting hit up by a couple of different brands, and I was like, wow, like I can actually, make some money off of this.
Got
as
some
like
swag.
a little side hustle. Yeah. So
how many, like when you started getting contacted by brands, how many followers did you have?
Maybe like 4,000, 5,000. Yeah.
Cool. So you must have been doing something right with your whole look and styling and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good with styling, I would say, for the most part. I just love color. Like I love like bright colors and color blocking and, mixing patterns. I think that's really fun. And for me, it's really aesthetically pleasing. But I actually did struggle. Like when I first started doing it, I had this like two separate lives that I was living of like the social worker and then like the the hype beast
Yeah,
on
hype
Instagram,
bae.
you know? Yeah, the hype bay. So I wasn't really sharing on my social media platforms about my job and like what I do. And I got really consumed in like comparing myself to like other influencers out there and or if I didn't get a certain release, like getting down on myself because it didn't give me this like level of clout. And I like had to take a step back and be like, what the hell is going on? Like, why am I letting this like superficial stuff bother me so much? So then I actually went back to therapy.
For yourself.
For myself, yeah. I love my therapist. I still see her. She's awesome. And she kind of helped me see that, you know, it's okay to be a social worker and also be in the sneakers. And it's what makes me unique and to own it and use it for the good.
So she said, go all in.
Yeah. So I started doing it. And
really? That's interesting advice.
Yeah. And I just kind of...
From a I thought it'd be like, no, turn off, like delete your Instagram account.
She's like, you're in control. So you can share what you want to share. You don't have to, you know, but she knows me pretty well. She's like, you're very passionate about the advocacy work around it. And, you know, at my job, it's more clinical work where I'm just helping other people. I'm not really like spreading this like message out to the masses.
Right.
So that's kind of what I started doing. And
to like merge those two worlds together. Okay.
And at first I was like, this like no one in sneakers and streetwear really care about mental health. It's kind of like a stigma and people are probably going to think I'm corny or whatever. But I did it and it worked out. And so fast forward.
Can you give an example of how you would do it? Like in the early days, like how would you blend?
Occasionally, I'll find like a cool photo of like a quote on the like a street. There's an account that I follow called "We're Not Really Strangers," and they do a lot of similar. So sometimes I'll repost their photos, and I'll just like in my caption put a long caption about like, you know, we have control over our thoughts, or I'll use like what I'm trained in the cognitive behavioral therapy model that I use in my job, and what this talks about is how our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are all connected. So I'll just basically say, like, look, we can't control the event that happens in our lives, but we can control how we respond to it.
Right.
And then sometimes I'll just open up, I'll post a photo, and I'll say, look, I'm feeling really shitty today. Here's an old photo, but real talk, this is like what I'm going through right now. And just like kind of airing out all my dirty laundry onto this platform. Yeah. And it's cool because I actually have a ton of people that message me and they're like, wow, like, thank you for opening up. Or I'll share resources. There's an Instagram account called Find My Wellbeing. They're actually a service too, where if you're looking for a therapist, they will do the legwork, because one of the hardest things is finding a therapist that's like a good fit for you. Totally. So they will take a lot of like basic information, find out what you're looking for in a therapist, and they'll match you with people and give you some options to reach out to. So I'll like help promote them online. I'll do, you know, talk about Headspace or just different apps that people can use. Yeah. So I think like people have found that helpful. And I've had a couple people reach out and say like, hey, I started going to therapy because you really like inspired me to take care of my mental health. So yeah, that's cool. So that's what I started doing.
So I guess you started being quasi known for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But also like the girl, it's like sneakers. And you don't really see like those two worlds that much. If at all, like there's maybe two other girls that I know that are also mental health advocates, like that are pretty big into sneakers.
Self-doubt. It's something that can slowly chip away at your well-being. And if not checked, it can be totally crushing. But if we learn to embrace the doubt and ourselves, it can unlock more than potential. In many cases, it can actually reveal our true, unique, beautiful selves. This makes me think about someone like Joni Mitchell, who is worth looking up if you're not familiar. She wasn't even tuning her guitar in a standard format. It's been said that Joni created over 50 unique tuning conventions on guitar. She literally could not figure out a way to fit in. So she listened to her instincts and made her own sounds that went against everything they teach you in music school. The same applies to visionaries like Steve Jobs, Nina Simone, Old Dirty Bastard, Bob Dylan, and others. These people embraced their originality, coped with the feeling of being an outsider, and then in turn were recognized for their unique visions. So don't be fooled by the veneer of social media. So many of us are constantly on a journey to be at peace with who we are and how we are. And the answer to sorting that out does not exist in the approval of others. It originates from inside. Liz is talking about embracing what makes us unique, and it's something I've spent most of my adult life thinking about. Those who have the courage to be honest with who they are often might feel isolated or alone. You know who else often feels that way? Leaders. By definition, embracing your own originality makes you someone who doesn't want to follow the herd. Society wants people to be sheep, so it has a way of shaming those who don't fall in line. Just know that the very thing that makes you weird and different is not the thing that needs to be fixed. It is the thing that needs to be embraced. Okay, so then how does the approach happen finally?
So, yeah, I mean, I've been following Cultivator because I had a friend a couple years ago who had designed a shoe with them. And then last year, if you're familiar with the Coral Studio 95s that were released by my friend Ish, he designed those. So I've been following them, and I just saw, I think it was April or May, and it was like, hey, we're looking for New York-based creators. So I just, reached out. I sent in my info and was kind of like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Here's my story. I'm a social worker. And I knew from the jump that, if I were ever to design a sneaker, and I've said this, so many times to people, and it's crazy because I was actually on a podcast last year where they're like, if you could design any sneaker, what would it be? And I said it would be a mental health awareness shoe. So then this came along, and I was like, if I were to design a sneaker, it would be a mental health awareness related story. So
did you have to already sketch it, or it was just a brief that you had to write?
It was just a brief.
Okay.
And
can you explain what Cultivator is for those who don't know?
Yeah. So Cultivator is a creative agency that they basically provide different creatives throughout the U.S. with these opportunities, and every year they do a launch with Nike where they assign the model, and you get to design the colorway essentially with Nike, and then you get 2 weeks where your shoe goes live on the Nike website and people can purchase it, and after those 2 weeks, it's gone.
And is it done on Nike by you?
Yeah, it's through Nike
formally
by you.
Nike ID.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you submit your brief, then what happens?
I submit my brief, and I didn't hear anything for a while. Nothing. So, well, actually not a while, a month, 2 months. So July comes around, and I start seeing on Instagram, people sharing, oh, damn, I didn't get selected. I didn't get selected in their stories. And it was some friends that I had followed that are also pretty big into sneakers.
They got a formal rejection letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you didn't get one yet. I didn't get anything. So I was like, what the hell's going on?
The hope is alive.
So I was like,
There's hope.
There's hope. So and I was honestly going to say, screw it. I probably didn't get it. Because, with some raffle emails, you just don't hear anything.
Yeah, of course.
So
it's like a lotto ticket.
Yeah. So I don't know what it was, but I messaged them. I was like, hey, I saw some of my friends are learning either way. Let me know. I didn't hear anything. They're like, oh, what's your email? And I was like, this is my email. They're like, oh, you put the wrong email. I messed up my email when I typed it in. So I had one letter off because I probably did it on my iPhone and something happened. So luckily for that, then they're like, oh my God, thank God you reached out. Yeah. And it was actually 2 days later after people had already started having access to our creator studio where you can go in and customize everything.
2 days after?
Yeah, it already was going.
You passed the deadline, and they were just like, oh, she didn't reply, so.
Yeah. So
oh no!
Then
Imagine you didn't ping back.
They're like, oh, well, here's all your emails. We'll just re-forward them to you. So they forwarded them back to me. So I was like, okay, cool. So I logged in. I was panicking, oh my gosh, I think they gave us maybe a week to come up with the colorway and figure it out, and the storyline and the photos we wanted, the inspirational images.
But now you had even less time than that.
Yeah. So I was like, shit. So this is...
You had what, 4 days?
Yeah. And I was at work. I was working full-time Monday to Friday. So I was at work trying to do this on my lunch break.
Had you yet... Well, you didn't even know what model you had to work with yet,
well,
right?
Once I logged in, you got assigned.
But it's not like when you applied, you're like, I'm going to do this color, and it's all ready to go. No.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So they assign you the shoe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 3 models this year were the React Element 55s, the 270 Reacts, and the 200s.
Did you get to choose, or they signed?
No, I got assigned the 270s. So.
All right. Were you happy with it?
Yeah. I definitely was happy with it. I would have either wanted this or the Air Max 200, which I think is cool. But I like the Reacts.
Yeah.
So So I got this opportunity. I
Talk about
logged in.
your 96-hour design process. How'd you do that?
So I am very blessed with a lot of great people in my corner. I have a friend who's based in Miami named Christian. He is a graphic designer and designed my In My Feels and That's Okay logo for me. I called him up. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I need this in 2 days. Can you do it? He was like, got you. So did it, sent it over to me, had that done.
Which is the back part?
Which is, I don't know if you saw, I actually made t-shirts.
I didn't see.
With like,
check it out.
I'll show you then.
Did he do the mock ads too?
No, my boyfriend did those.
Okay, all right. So you definitely brought in the whole team. Okay, go on. Who else helped out?
Elisa helped out with planning my launch party. My friend Jive, she helped out with all the photography. My boyfriend also shot some photography, and my friend Ralph also shot some photography. And I actually, as soon as I found this out, my first thing I did, I called Ish. I messaged Ish. I was like, hey, I got this opportunity. Can you help me out? And he's who did the Coral Studio 95s last year that blew up pretty big. So he gets on the phone. He calls me. He's on the phone with me for an hour. And he's like, all right, this is what we did last year just to spark some ideas going. So this kid barely knew me. And the fact that he spent an hour on the phone with me helping me out like meant a lot. So it got some ideas going in my head. I was like, all right, cool. I knew I wanted to do a mental health awareness shoe, and I ultimately chose the color green. I had, in the 5 days that I had to design it, I had to basically go into the Nike by You website, choose the colorway.
And that was all you?
Yeah.
That part?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is what I did. I mean, I had some friends over, and I was kind of throwing around just different combinations of the colors, but...
you kept it, like, pretty simple, too, because I've seen other ones, and they go ham. They, like, every single panel's a different color.
Yeah.
So you went simple and wearable.
And I think for me too is I saw the previous colorways that have already been put out there in the Air Max, the 270 Reacts, and there's a lot going on. And so this was just different. It's very minimal, it's very clean. And I knew I wanted to do green because that's the color of mental health awareness.
Okay.
And so that's why I chose this green color on the shoe, as close to the green as I could get. There wasn't a Kelly green, so I chose this like lime. And then when I was going through the swooshes, I saw that they had the like wavy swoosh option. And I was like, that's really cool. How can I incorporate that into mental health? And I was like, oh my gosh, like one of the things I always say on Instagram is that healing's not linear. So I chose the wavy swoosh to represent that, like, you always have these ups and downs in life.
That's your thoughts right there, yeah.
And the hardest part for me was choosing the name of the colorway. I didn't know what to call it. And I called it In My Feels. Looking back, if I had more time, I probably would have thought something else out. But it's kind of what came to mind on the spot. So
that's the stroke of genius. What are you talking about?
I did. Yeah.
The In My Feels is like the whole thing. If you called it something else, it'd be totally...
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I like
it's
it,
so
but
on point.
I feel like it's like a play off of the Drake song, and I mean, it is, but...
Yeah, it is, but I mean, it really... It captures that sort of like Venn diagram of like clinical awareness of therapy that's needed, and Gen Zers, millennials, what they listen to and stuff. So it's like... It wasn't too clinical. It wasn't too street. It was like perfectly in the middle, I thought.
And I liked it. And then, I mean, I saw some good feedback. I honestly saw a lot of people saying it was corny. So then I was like in my head about it. Like,
you were in your feels.
I was in my feels about it. Yeah. So
how about the marketing of it? You mentioned like a party, a launch event, the post, the mock ads and all that stuff. Was that from Cultivator standpoint? Were you allowed to do whatever you wanted? Yeah.
So with the Cultivator, there was 28 creatives selected overall, and 5 people out of the 28 were chosen. I don't know if it was by Cultivator or by Nike, but they got extra Nike marketing. So they got like videos and more stuff done on the Nike end to help boost their campaigns. I unfortunately, and I guess fortunately, wasn't one of those people. So
you said fortunately wasn't one of those people?
Yeah, because I got more creative freedom as to what I wanted to do.
Oh, interesting. So, if you're chosen, you get sort of locked into the rules of
Nike I know they had to sign those people had to sign like actual contracts, I think, with Nike. I didn't have to do that. I had to click a box on the Cultivator website that I agreed to terms and conditions.
Okay, and you were free. Yeah.
And
you're a free woman after that.
So I don't know what, I just was like, I use Pinterest a lot to get a lot of design inspiration. And I have a design board, and most of them were like the vintage Nike ads. And I was like, you know what? how can I incorporate my shoe? But I also wanted to make sure that I was giving some resources or giving some information about mental health in like one fell swoop. I was like, you know what? I can take these ads and I can just add mental health language on them and do my shoes.
And change the old shoe to your shoe.
And I talked to my boyfriend about it. I said, this would be a cool idea, but I don't know how to do this. He's like, I got you. So bless his heart, he's boyfriend of the year for this, but he did all of those ads in 3 days for me.
Whoa.
Because I got the shoes in the mail on the 10th. They dropped on the 19th. We had to start marketing them on the 14th or 15th.
Okay.
So I had like 5 days with shoes in my hand to go out and take my photos.
Did they nail it on the first sample?
Yeah.
Good.
It was good. Yeah, we went out one morning. My friend Jive and Ralph came over. They did a lot of the shooting for me and Domino Park in the water. And then my boyfriend did all the product photography for me. And then he brought all of that to work, I guess. Maybe I shouldn't say this if his job's listening, but he did a lot of it at work and just recreated the ads. And I just sent him the ads. I was like, make this one into this one.
So good.
And he did it. And he was like, all right, just tell me what words you want on it. So I went through, I typed up what I wanted, where I wanted it. And we worked together collaboratively and did it.
I love it when she says healing is not linear. The Nike swoosh on the In My Feels is a big part of what stopped people in their tracks when images of the shoe surface. The jagged swoosh is perfectly symbolic of the healing process. I love this moment because it's a reminder to trust our first instinct, and it also applies to her naming the shoe In My Feels. It's funny how we sometimes doubt our first instinct, and it's often the most honest representation of our ideas. I can't tell you how many times my first creative inclination was ultimately the idea that felt most inspired. What typically happens is that you take that first idea and then you apply things like money, metrics, and public opinion to it. And that's when it all gets messed up. I think part of our job as a creative is to figure out how to get the idea back to its original state while balancing everything else involved. Get it back to that source code. We have to learn to trust ourselves to represent who we are and what it is that we're trying to say in its purest form. This thinking also attracts the right people. And in this world of trying to constantly impress the wrong people, honesty in who we are is what leads to that positive energy from the people who we want to be in our circle, because they actually appreciate you for who you are. Look at how Liz's village showed up for her. It was a very tight-knit group of people who were inspired by each other's honesty. But now, look at the results. It became something that connected on a deep level with a huge amount of people, and it raised awareness for a very important cause. It never ceases to amaze me how remarkable just being honest with yourself can be. This reminds me of a Sean Witherspoon story, because I did a podcast with him as well. And when he made it to one of the finalists of like Air Max Day, they were like, okay, you could design your Air Max now. And he like freaked out and immediately called all his friends into a room and said, how do we do this? Right? Because, you don't come from an industrial design shoemaking background. Yeah. So it's great that you just called all your homies and everyone contributed.
Yeah. And it's cool too, like that everyone was so like supportive of the mental health initiative. That's what I was like blown away by, was how many people like were like, wow, I didn't expect people to really be so drawn to it or really care about it. And so many people did. And that was what was really, really cool to see. Yeah. But yeah, my friends, like, they're the best. They held it down for me. So
when you, prior to you getting the first sample in your hand, okay, how many followers did you have on Instagram? And I only ask because I want to know how big your platform was.
12,000, 11,000.
Okay.
So I grew like maybe 3,000 followers.
Since?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since.
So you already had a decent platform so when you did like these mock ads and the whole thing, like people were, you could get a lot of reaction and feedback from it.
Yeah.
Was it immediate home run, or did you have some like negative feedback on it, or was it primarily good?
Well, what had really took off too was Elisa and I had planned a launch party.
Okay.
We did on the 18th.
Again, without help from Nike.
Yeah, everything pretty much that I did was out of my own budget.
Out of your own budget, meaning out of your own wallet, or
Yes.
Cultivator gave you a little bit of money?
Out of my own wallet.
Okay. I love it.
So we were
For the love. It's
Yeah.
for the love of the culture.
No, well, we reached out to a couple venues. I had hit up one of my friends who did photography for Kinfolk, and he connected me with the programmer at Kinfolk, and I explained to him what was going on. He was like, yo, I love that idea, and gave us a space for free. So Sam at Kinfolk is amazing. Did that, and then I was like, all right, how do we plan this event? So I decided I wanted to give back to mental health. Like, for me, I don't believe in profiting off of mental health. Like, if I'm going to talk about mental health in some way, shape, or form through a marketing campaign, I want to make sure that I'm working with an organization to donate. So what I decided was all of the kickback that I got from the shoe sales is going to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Okay.
So I actually am not profiting off of them at all.
And you spent to
And
market
I spent
it. Yeah.
to market it, yeah. But
So part of the Cultivator deal is that you get whatever sales you get.
you get a certain
a
percent.
a
Yeah.
percentage of it. So
Yeah.
so everyone's incentivized to try to sell more.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so
So you did a launch
Yeah.
event to try to just
Yeah.
was the launch event on the day it went live?
it was the 18th, the day before, the night
Okay.
before. And
so you wanted to pump up the
Yeah.
buzz so that
No.
everyone the next day would log on.
and no
go.
one had seen the shoe yet.
Okay.
I didn't have
So it was
any
an
images
unveiling,
released.
okay.
So people that came through, we actually had T-shirts made too. With I'll show you a photo later of them. Just a green box that said "In My Feels and That's Okay." Sold them. We also had journals. My friend Amir from Philly, who has this really cool journal company called Buy Idle Hours, came by and donated some journals to sell there. We got a bunch of White Crew socks and just tie-dyed them green and sold them there. We had the posters like printed out actually and sold them there, which I was actually going to bring some for you and I forgot, but I'll just mail them to you.
Good looking out.
So yeah, we just had a bunch of stuff there. We had donation boxes set up, and
Amazing.
So we had people from AFSP there, and we got some sponsors. Grassroots Juicery donated some juices. We had Eat Good NYC, the people that make those really cool cupcakes with the sneakers and stuff. They donated some cupcakes. So like a lot of great people that really stood behind the cause and really wanted to help support. So honestly, without all of them, it wouldn't have been possible to do any of it. So we raised a good amount of money too at the launch event.
Just at the Kinfolk event.
Yeah.
Okay.
For charity. And then people were like, I had a couple of my shoes there like on display for people to take photos of. So they were just blasting out images all night. And then we went out after, and I was pretty drunk, and I was like, well, I'm technically not supposed to post this photo till tomorrow, but it's 11. So threw it up on my Instagram and was like, tomorrow, 8 a.m. And then that photo, like, people shared it like crazy. And then 8 a.m. the next day, like, I posted another photo, and it just started going nuts. And next thing I know, like, everyone's resharing it. And so many people are messaging me and saying how much, like, the shoe meant to them because, like, they either had mental health struggles or family members, and it was just like wildfire. It was really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so the next day it launches.
Yep.
Right, it goes live. Tell me about how that went, like as it was going live.
I took the day off from work.
Took a personal day off.
And
to watch this unfold.
I made sure to set my alarm for like 7:30 because they wanted us to post a photo at like 8 a.m. to promote it. So I woke up, I did that. And then to be honest, I kind of just like stayed off my phone for most of the day just to avoid it. My boyfriend, he also took off. So we just like rode bikes around Brooklyn, went for breakfast. We went to the new Only shop in Greenpoint, hit up a bunch of places. And then I came home and I looked at my phone. I was like, oh my goodness, like all these outlets are covering this shoe. Like this is insane. I know Elisa had hooked it up with a couple. She did amazing with the press side of things.
Right.
And I was just like, wow, like this is phenomenal. So I just kind of like was like, okay, this is
absorbed
cool.
it all, yeah.
And then the next day it got even bigger. Like
really?
Tuesday I think was the biggest day of it all. And
did
then
some major press outlet like hit it on the first day and then
Teen Vogue had launched something. I had Teen Vogue, HYPEBEAST, HYPEBEAST, High Snobiety, Sneaker News.
Right.
I had a ton. It was wild. And
yeah, and a lot of them I feel like, not to sort of throw anyone else under the bus, but like they were talking just about your shoe, not like all the other ones.
Yeah. And I also kind of felt bad. I was like, but I was like, this is cool. Like also like,
I gotta
I'm
say,
not profiting off of it, so it's raising awareness.
Right.
That's really all I wanted it to do.
I mean, me from the outside, as like, I didn't get a press release or anything like that. I just stumbled upon your shoe. I ordered it. I didn't get it yet. Still waiting.
That's good, because I got a DM at 4:00 on Tuesday. They were gone.
That, what, the second day? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I'll get to that later, the whole thing. But like, I saw your shoe, I ordered it, but then I really tried in the day of social media, meaning like I gave it 3 minutes. But like, I really tried to like figure out what this was part of, and Cultivator and Nike by You and everyone else. And like your thing overshadowed, like I couldn't figure out what was going on except for the In My Feel shoe. Like your thing literally just eclipsed the entire, the whole entire campaign. I hate to say it, but like y'all did too good of a job. I think.
Thank you. I have a lot of creative friends and
No, I think the message
people.
was pure, and the execution of the shoe was great, and the execution of the marketing was also solid. Like, you mentioned now to me that like y'all just tie-dyed some socks. I saw that image with like the shoe and the socks. It looks so professionally done. I didn't know you just tie-dyed them for the event at Kinfolk.
Yeah, I did all that. Like,
I thought like
in
Nike
my kitchen.
made those socks.
No, I had a bunch of white socks in an Amazon box, and I'm standing at my kitchen sink like tie-dyeing them.
Wow.
Yep.
I was like, that's so cool. Nike did coordinating socks with this.
I wish. That would have been cool. But maybe another time.
Right. Okay. So tell me about how the system of the Nike by You was supposed to work. Like, was it supposed to be up for a certain number of days?
Yeah, it was supposed to be up for 2 weeks until
14
September.
days.
Yeah, September 1st or 2nd was the last day.
But there's a cap, obviously, on how many could be ordered. Is that what it was?
I think it was by materials. So what they told me, they had DM'd me on Tuesday around like 4:00, and they're like, "Hey, just so you know, your shoe's sold out. You should probably post and tell everyone your shoe's gone." I was like, "Well, is it gonna
Wait, after 2 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even. It was less than 40 hours, and I was like, "Okay, so are they gonna restock? Like, what's up with this?" Because I was like,
But what does
"Shit,
even
I wanna
restock
get
mean?
another
They're
pair."
they're
Are they going to order more materials?
Yeah.
Like, what's...
Yeah.
And they're like, "I don't know. We're going to look into it." And this was the conversation I had with Cultivator. So I was like, "Okay, cool." So they tracked back to Nike. They're kind of like the middleman between Nike and me. And we're talking to them like, "Hey, unfortunately, like, there's no more materials left." And what they had told us, like prior to the shoes being launched, we actually had all 28 of us, a Nike rep and one of the Cultivator reps, in a group video chat where they answered questions for us.
Okay.
As far as like our marketing rollout, what we could do, what we couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they explained was, the first week, our designs were exclusive to Nike by You's website. But the following week, which would still be the second week our shoes were available to be purchased, Nike by You was going to put up the Air Max, our silhouettes, and people could go and customize them. So theoretically, someone could go on, if they didn't want to support me or support the cause, they could go and make an identical pair of In My Feels on Nike by You and order it for themselves.
And have it say In My Feels.
Yeah, if they really wanted to do that.
That's so strange.
So the following week, when that happened, I was like, well, I'm going to see if I can go make my shoe.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. Some of the
so it was
colors, like
legit.
the overlay colors, were
legit
gone. Yeah, so it was legit. The materials were gone. So...
Do you know how many pairs are out there?
Yeah, I think maybe 475 to 500.
That's it?
Yeah, not many.
Oh, I thought it was going to be thousands or tens of thousands.
Nope, not many. Like 500-ish.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky I ordered one.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm bummed I wanted another pair. I might have to steal my mom's pair.
Have you calculated between the fundraising, the Kinfolk event, and this, how much is going? Yeah.
My goal was 3,000, and I think we're going to be close to 6,000.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. And of course, the uncalculable awareness that's gone out now is amazing.
Yeah.
Just another testament to the community. But also, don't overlook the fact that Liz invested in herself, literally. She believed that she could help others. And remember when I ran us through the exercise of imagining the exhaustion one must feel to be a social worker and bear the weight of other people's struggles? Well, she made the time to build the events, the advertisements, the photo shoots, and anything else she could to launch the project in a way that did her mission justice. The commitment she learned from her work immediately translated to the commitment it took to make her shoe become a global phenomenon. The output might vary, but the work ethic remains the same. Don't ever overlook that. Don't sell yourself or your mission short. Believe in yourself. Be honest and build your community one at a time. They will carry you when you need them most. And together, you guys can do incredible things and possibly change the world. So what do you want to do now? You gonna quit and become a sneaker designer now?
No, that would be really cool, but I don't think so. I really want to. I'm currently studying for my licensed clinical social worker exam. So if I pass that, then I'll have my next licensure in social work. And I really want to for the MBA. I want to be a mental health professional for an MBA team.
Oh wow! Just merge all your passions into one thing.
That would be
and design the shoe for that team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be awesome. While you're at it, I'll save you guys some costs. That would be cool.
You do the marketing for it. Yeah.
I'd also think it'd be cool, like, to consult with some brands around like mental health rollouts and how to market mental health, because I think it's a really fine, like, it's a tricky line to approach.
It's new territory, and I think brands really do need to start to be aware of it, because when you work at a brand, or if you have a brand, or like if you're, I've been in a position where I'm working collaboratively with a brand, my job is to create all this hype and energy and like make people want this thing, this shiny glowing object. But inevitably what comes out of that is this FOMO thing, or all the people that can't get it. And then, like you were saying back in the day when you started posting, like, oh man, I didn't get this, I didn't get seated that, I couldn't get this hooked up, like I don't have that, and you start to feel down. So, but that's sort of the business, right? The business of it, very sort of matter of fact, is that there's going to be the 1% who win it, and then the 99% who don't win it. Yep. And there's going to be feelings coming out of that. And it would be nice if the brands working with people like you address that, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you stay up and positive? Like, if your job is for everyone else to dump their feelings on, who cleans you up? How do you process all that?
I go to my own therapist. I used to go weekly. Now it's more of monthly, because I don't really need to go as often. I've been doing pretty well. But I have really bad anxiety.
Is it more from processing your clients, or is it more from your life on social media?
I honestly, it started after I started working full time. So I think a lot of it has to do with the stress of my job. I go to therapy. I still play basketball. I play with a women's league called Hoop York City, and they're phenomenal. And it's just like surrounding myself with good people. Sports are a big part of my life. So playing sports. Yeah.
That's awesome. That therapists go to see other therapists. It's just helping each other out. Do you ever help other therapists?
Not currently, no.
Okay, but that must be like the weirdest chess game, because like you're being helped, but like you also know their trick. Like you know what they're gonna say, so it's like playing poker against a professional poker player.
It is.
Right?
I'll be in therapy sessions with mine. I'm like, I know what you're doing, but it's working. I can't do this for myself, so I'm gonna pay you to do it. Yeah.
What do you think for young people, and not super young, but I mean like, college kids, millennials, Gen Zers, like what is the number one thing that's getting them not mentally well? Is it like, is there a lot of social media pressure? Is it that, or is it just work? Is it environment? Is it the presidency? Like what is getting people down?
I think it's a mixture of all. I think it really is different depending on each individual person and what their personal goals and values are. I definitely think social media has a lot more of a prevalence in the world than it ever has. And I think it's easy to get into a mentally unhealthy mindset by, going on sometimes and comparing yourself to other people, or seeing the highlight reels that are being posted. But, definitely like the presidency has a huge effect on people. Also, just like depending on where you live, like living in New York City is grueling on your mental health, because you're just constantly around motivated people, go-getters. Like you're like, oh God, this person's doing all this, I should be doing that. Maybe not. Maybe you just need to sit in tonight and like watch TV. That's okay. But I think it's just a mixture of like all the systems of your life. So it could be family stress, it could be, environmental stress, school stress, whatever. Yeah.
It's really tough to balance everything today, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned social media. And there's ways that social media can be beneficial, but would you say that overwhelmingly it's like it creates more harm than it does good?
I think if you get into the black hole of using it to harm, I mean, it's easy to go on and follow all these people that you look up to or want to be like, but are you also following people that inspire you? Are you also following pages that spark creativity? Are you following people that teach you something other than look at my cool shoes or look at my cool outfit today? Like, there's more to it than that. Or are you using it to connect with people and be social? That's the point of social media, right? To go on there and meet new friends and put yourself out there. So I think it really depends on how the person uses it.
Yeah. What do you think is the best way to deal with like social media bullying? And
Block and mute.
Yeah, is that the best way? I just wondered, like, your assessment of it.
Yeah, I mean,
because bullying can happen in very minutia ways and very obvious ways.
Out of sight, out of mind is what I say, but also, talking to someone, making sure you have a really good support system, whether that be a best friend, family member, guidance counselor in school.
Right?
Like, just having someone that can like affirm that whatever that person's saying is not true.
Right. In my fields is really interesting because I think a lot of people get the bullying, but then like they literally close off and like just marinate in that feeling, which is probably like the worst thing you could do is just stew in it, right?
One of the things I always say to my clients, I compare humans to soda bottles, and they always are like, what? And I said, you think of a soda bottle, right? And you have it, and it's full, and the cap's on, and you're shaking, and you're shaking, and you're shaking. What's happening?
Which is life. Life is shaking it, right? Yeah.
And then eventually, like, if you don't do anything to kind of slowly release that seal, like coping skills or sports or whatever healthy outlets you have,
right,
and you just open it one day, it's going to explode. Like, that's how we are with our emotions. Like, we have to do things to keep ourselves in check, or we just blow up one day and we just explode. So
that is a great analogy.
Yeah, soda bottles.
Okay, last bit of advice for I mean, like, you've gone through so many things. You could give mental advice. You could give advice on sort of living your dreams. What advice would you give someone who's looking up to you and saying, like, I want to be you?
I would just say, from my own personal experience, it's important to just be yourself. Be authentic. Don't do what you think other people want you to do, because if you're ultimately not happy because you're not being your truest self, like, you're not doing yourself justice.
Right. Even if you're quote unquote successful being somebody else, it won't last very long.
No, I feel like you're still going to be internally struggling because
Word. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening to this deeply insightful episode with the ever-inspiring Liz Beecroft. If you need help with emotions that you're dealing with, or you just need people to talk to, Liz recommends this. She wants you to check out Find My Wellbeing. You can find them on Instagram at Find My Wellbeing. They're great because they actually do the legwork to match you with a therapist that's a good fit. She also recommends mental health journals from Idle Hours. They're on Instagram at by.idlehours, Idle Hours. Liz partnered with them for her launch event, and they make really dope journals, which are really good for self-care. And last but not least, she recommends the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They're at afsp.org. We'll put all of these links in our post on hypebeast.com/radio. You can also find out more about the show and listen to other episodes there at that link. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I personally use Anchor FM. Also, please do me a favor and leave a rating and comment to tell us what you think about the show. It definitely helps out a lot. And also, tell all your friends about the show. Share it on social media. I love reposting times when I see people listening to The Business of Hype. It's awesome. We also occasionally answer listener questions, so if you have a question, shoot it over to me on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Staple. The Business of Hype is created in collaboration with Bright Young Things. You can check out their work at byt.nyc. Our director is Daniel Navetta. Our audio engineer is David Rogers-Berry. Our associate producers are Sydney Pacumpra and Christina Hung. This episode was recorded at Sibling Rivalry Studio and on location at the Staple headquarters in New York City. I am Jeff Staple, and you've been listening to The Business of Hype on HYPEBEAST Radio.